He was born into a family of boxing greats. His uncle and father wanted him to lace up the gloves and carry on their legacy. But instead of stepping into the boxing ring, Saquon Barkley stepped onto the football field. And it's a blessing that he did. He shattered records at Penn State and became the New York Giants' franchise cornerstone. But then came injuries and the decision that changed everything.
I'm going to have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that.
After signing with the Eagles, Saquon rewrote his story. He accounted for 36.6% of Philly's total offensive yards that season, smashed NFL rushing records, and sealed it all with a Super Bowl victory. So, how did someone destined for boxing become one of the best players in the entire NFL? As a kid in the Bronx, Saquon dreamed of being a pro boxer. Well, at least that was his family's dream for him. His father, Ali Barkley, was a real-deal professional boxer, and his great-uncle, Aron Barkley, held boxing world championships in 3 different weight classes. So when Saquon was little, he'd tag along to the boxing gym with his dad. He'd watch him shadow box under the dim lights, smell the leather of the gloves, and hear the pop of punches against the pads. That was normal for him. That was home.
My dad actually used to just take me to the street and put gloves on and make me fight random kids for whatever reason. I don't know.
But Saquon wasn't like everyone else in the gym. He didn't dream of trading blows in the ring.
Football didn't work out for me, probably would with boxing. I don't like getting hit though, so I don't think our careers right there would have worked.
He wanted space. He wanted to run. And soon life gave him the chance. In 2001, when Saquon was just 4 years old, the Barkleys left the Bronx for Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Then, over the next few years, the family hopped between towns, first to Allentown before settling in Copley in 2005, where Saquon would eventually find his stage. Whitehall High School, part of the football powerhouse Eastern Pennsylvania Conference, a league known for producing NFL talent. But early on, Saquon didn't look like the future face of an NFL franchise. As a freshman, he barely made a dent. But between his sophomore and junior years, something clicked. His legs got stronger, his speed jumped, and suddenly, defenders who used to bring him down couldn't touch him. In his senior year alone, he put up 1,856 yards and 31 touchdowns, earning a 4-star ranking and becoming the #1 recruit in the state of Pennsylvania. Years later, Whitehall High School would retire his number 21 jersey, placing him in the same company as alumni Matt Millen and Dan Coppin, NFL veterans with championship rings. That's how good of an athlete he was. And it all but solidified his decision to pursue a career on the gridiron, rather than following in his family's footsteps between the ropes. But when it came to playing ball at the next level, though, Saquon was originally committed to Rutgers. But then Penn State came calling, and that changed everything. In 2015, Penn State was still crawling out of one of the darkest stretches in program history. Just 3 years earlier, they'd been hit with crippling NCAA sanctions, which caused loss of scholarships, a 4-year bowl ban, and heavy recruiting restrictions after the Sandusky scandal. From 2012 to 2014, the Nittany Lions went just 21-17, including a 7-6 finish the year before Barkley got there. They needed a spark, someone who could change games, change seasons, and maybe even change the entire energy around the team. Enter Saquon. By his second game as a freshman, he was already putting up 100-plus yards. By his third start, he torched Rutgers, the school he almost went to, for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. But a few weeks later, he faced the ultimate test, #1 Ohio State, the defending national champs. Most 18-year-old backs would have been happy just breaking a few decent runs. But Saquon went for 194 yards on 26 carries against one of the best defenses in the country. Barkley finished his freshman campaign with 1,076 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. But then his sophomore year, he took things to another level. In a rivalry game against Pitt, Saquon scored 5 touchdowns. Then came Ohio State again, where Barkley racked up nearly 100 rushing yards, racking up 1,496 rushing yards and 18 rushing touchdowns. He led Penn State to a second straight 11-win season and finished the year with 1,271 rushing yards, 18 total touchdowns, and 632 receiving yards, winning the Paul Hornung Award as the nation's most versatile player, while also finishing 4th in the Heisman voting. So, by the time the 2018 NFL Draft rolled around, Saquon Barkley wasn't just some talented running back. He was different. Even Mel Kiper Jr., an analyst famous for warning teams not to draft running backs early, called Barkley a once-in-a-lifetime talent and said, "Teams that pass on this young man will be sorry." And he was clearly right, because at the Combine, Saquon ran the 40-yard dash in 4:40. He cranked out 29 reps on the bench press, tying for the most among running backs that year. Then, just for good measure, he exploded, jumping 41 inches on the vertical jump. Heading into the draft, some insiders said the Cleveland Browns were seriously considering taking him number 1 overall, a spot no running back had claimed since Kajana Carter, another Penn State product, back in 1995. However, the Cleveland Browns drafted Baker Mayfield, which put the New York Giants on the clock with the number 2 pick. For them, quarterback was a real possibility. Eli Manning was nearing the end, and a rookie QB could have been a bridge to the future, but the Giants didn't see it that way.
The New York Giants select Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State.
The Bronx-born kid was coming home to wear blue. In Week 1 of his rookie season against the Jags, Saquon introduced himself to the world with a 68-yard touchdown run that felt less like a play and more like a prophecy. 1 week later, he caught 14 passes, setting Giants records for the most receptions in a single game and tying the NFL rookie record at the time. He could beat you running inside, outside, as a receiver, in space, pick your poison. By season's end, he had 1,307 rushing yards, 721 receiving yards, and 15 total touchdowns, as well as over 100 scrimmage yards in 13 different games, tying an NFL rookie record as he won NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. He also put up 2 touchdowns of 50-plus yards against the same team, which hadn't happened since 1970, and recorded over 2,000 total yards, joining an elite club. And he did all that playing behind a mediocre offensive line on a Giants team that was a wreck, finishing just 5-11. Saquon was hope for New York. He was the reason to watch. But the road ahead would test him in ways no rookie highlight reel could ever predict. Heading into his second year, Barkley was already ranked number 16 in the NFL's top 100 players list, an incredible honor for someone just 22 years old, and his teammates voted him one of the team's 7 captains. He started the season hot with 120 yards on just 11 carries in Week 1. In Week 2, he had another 100-yard game and a touchdown. He was on pace for a historic season, and he had his sights set on something bigger: Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record of 2,105 yards. But in Week 3 against Tampa Bay, disaster struck. He suffered a high ankle sprain, the kind that robs you of your explosion. Doctors said he'd be out 4 to 8 weeks.
I'm not out for the season. I'm going to try to, hopefully, whatever I can do to get back as quickly as possible.
And somehow Saquon was back in 3, but he wasn't the same. The Giants were still losing, the holes weren't there, and he was running on pure willpower. Even so, he fought to close the year strong, putting up back-to-back monster games late in the season, including a career-high 189 rushing yards and 90 receiving yards in one game against Washington, as he became the only running back in Giants history to post 1,000 rushing yards in each of his first 2 seasons. 2020 was supposed to be his comeback year. Instead, one awkward tackle in Week 2 caused Saquon to suffer a torn ACL. Nearly a year later, he returned, but the comeback was messy. Just 5 weeks in, he rolled his ankle on an awkward step. It was another injury, another stretch on the sidelines, and another reminder that his body was no longer cooperating. Meanwhile, the Giants' offense was crumbling. Quarterbacks rotated in and out with injuries, the coaching staff was a mess, and the offensive line was practically held together with duct tape. Defenses didn't fear the Giants' passing game, so they swarmed Barkley at every snap. And although he still gave flashes of the old magic, like a sudden jump cut here or a broken tackle there, it looked like the days of consistent dominance were gone. He finished 2021 with 593 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, numbers that looked foreign next to his rookie year stat sheet. Then the doubts started to creep in. Maybe he wasn't the same player anymore. Maybe the injuries had taken too much of a toll. But in 2022, Saquon was healthy, determined, and tired of the naysayers. Week 1 against the Titans was his statement game. 164 rushing yards, a touchdown, 6 catches, and the game-winning 2-point conversion. Barkley was back, and the Giants finally had a heartbeat again. Week after week, Saquon willed them to win. In Week 3 against the Cowboys, he had 126 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. A week later, he put up 146 yards on the ground. Then, in Week 10 against Houston, he had a career-high 35 carries for 152 yards and a score. When the passing game faltered, Saquon kept the offense alive. Even with an offensive line that ranked 28th in the league according to PFF, Barkley still managed to put up 1,312 rushing yards, the fourth most in the NFL, along with 10 rushing touchdowns plus 57 receptions for another 338 yards. Then came the playoffs, New York's first appearance in 6 years, and Saquon's first appearance ever. In Minnesota, he racked up 109 scrimmage yards and 2 huge touchdowns, leading the Giants to a 31-24 upset over the Vikings in a hostile environment. It was his masterpiece. The full weight of the franchise was on his shoulders, and he carried it with a smile. And with his contract running out, it was clear this should have been the kind of season that cemented a long-term future in blue. But when the offseason came, the Giants decided to give quarterback Daniel Jones a 4-year, $160 million contract with $82 million guaranteed. Saquon, on the other hand, received the franchise tag, a 1-year prove-it deal, for a player who had already proved it a dozen times over. But 2023 was chaos from the start. Daniel Jones went down early with a neck injury, returned briefly, then tore his ACL. The offensive line was a revolving door of backups and emergency signings. Receivers were in and out of the lineup. Still, Saquon showed up. He loved being a Giant.
And when I got drafted here, one of my goals would be the reason why the Giants is back on top, and the reason why we're having a parade in New York. And it just haven't went that way so far in my career. And like I said before, I want to be a Giant for life. I mentioned that.
Defenses knew he was coming, so they stacked 8, sometimes 9 men in the box and still couldn't stop him. He finished with 962 rushing yards and 10 total touchdowns in just 14 games. In the final week of the season against Philadelphia, Saquon put up 2 scores against the Giants' most hated rival, running with the same fire he had as a rookie. You'd think after a season like that, the Giants would finally pay him, right? Wrong. Instead, chaos followed, because after 6 years of carrying the offense on his back, Saquon Barkley expected loyalty. What he got was negotiations that dragged on for over a year, lowball offers, and one message repeated over and over: you'll have to prove your worth on the open market. See, the Giants front office believed that Saquon was asking for too much money, so they told him to test free agency, report back the offers he got, and the Giants would see if they'd be willing to match it.
Kind of a little disrespectful, to be honest, because it's kind of like a slap in the face. You go see what you are worth, and then maybe we'll match it.
However, when free agency opened, Giants GM Joe Schoen was shocked by the amount of money Saquon was being offered.
3 years, 37.75, be worth up to 46.7.
So he got north of that.
26 guaranteed.
And on March 13th, 2024, the bomb officially dropped. Saquon Barkley signed a 3-year, $37.75 million deal with none other than the division rival Philadelphia Eagles. Fans in New York were stunned. Some were heartbroken. Others were furious. But for Barkley, it wasn't just about a paycheck. It was about proving a point. Twice a year, he now would get the chance to line up against the team that let him walk away. And more than that, the Eagles gave him 2 things that he never got with the Giants: a good offensive line and the chance to compete for a Super Bowl ring. From the moment Saquon stepped on for Philly, it was clear this was a different Barkley. In his debut against the Packers, he exploded for 109 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, becoming the first Eagle since Terrell Owens in 2004 to score 3 times in their debut. By week 3, he was already taking over games in the fourth quarter, putting away the Saints with 2 late touchdowns. But week 7 was the game everyone circled: his return to MetLife against the Giants. And boy, did he deliver. 17 carries, 176 yards, 1 touchdown, and a 28-3 beatdown that had Giants fans heading for the exits early. Week after week, no matter where the Eagles played, fans started to chant loud and proud. The season really just became a highlight reel. 199 scrimmage yards and a wild backwards hurdle against Jacksonville in Week 9.
I think the more important thing is it's not maybe the best hurdle I've ever seen. I don't even know where do you even do this from?
A 255 rushing yard clinic against the Rams in Week 12, the most in Eagles history and 9th most in NFL history. He broke LaShawn McCoy's single-season franchise rushing record in Week 14. Then, for the final act of his masterpiece, Barkley became just the 9th player in league history to eclipse 2,000 rushing yards. And by the final week of the regular season, history was in reach. Eric Dickerson's 1984 rushing record, 2,105 yards, stood as one of football's most untouchable marks. Barkley entered Week 18 just 74 yards shy. The best part? Week 18 was against the Giants, so Saquon could break it against his former team. It would be the ultimate revenge. However, Philly had already secured the NFC's #1 seed. The game meant nothing in the standings, only in pride. So, Saquon made the tough call. Sit out, heal up, and save his legs for the playoffs. The record could wait, because to him, the ring mattered more. His team mattered more. Even without Week 18, his final regular season stat line was absurd. 2,283 scrimmage yards, which accounted for 36.6% of Philly's total offense. First team All-Pro honors, Offensive Player of the Year, and third place in MVP voting as a running back. But it wasn't over, because the playoffs was where the revenge tour became a championship march. In the wild card, he went for 119 yards against the Packers to grind out a 22-10 win. The divisional round, he racked up 205 yards and 2 60-plus yard touchdowns to crush the Rams. Then in the NFC Championship, he had 118 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 55-23 demolition of the Commanders. And then came Super Bowl 59 against the reigning champion Kansas City Chiefs. And to make it even better, it was on Saquon's 28th birthday. Barkley didn't put up video game numbers that night, finishing with 57 rushing yards and 40 receiving, but his steady, punishing runs helped Philly control the game's tempo. The Eagles won 40-22, delivering Barkley his first Super Bowl ring and cementing one of the most dominant single seasons in NFL history.
Lombardi trophy in front of me, got my daughter here, my family over there, some of my favorite players. I'm living the dream, man. I'm living the dream, and I'm super thankful.
He finished the year and playoffs combined with 2,504 rushing yards and 2,857 scrimmage yards, both all-time NFL records, surpassing Terrell Davis. Then, on March 4th, 2025, the Eagles made sure this partnership would last, handing Barkley a 2-year, $41.2 million extension with $36 million guaranteed, making him the highest-paid running back in NFL history by a long shot.
In fact, when he was asked about the Super Bowl, the parade, and his brand new contract, he simply said, "It's cool."
Saquon Barkley was supposed to be a boxer, but the NFL got a superstar instead, and his story is one still in the making. If you enjoyed this video, stick with Blitz, subscribe, and check out some of our other content right here.